Hey, welcome to day 3 of the HR Leadership Accelerator workshop. Very excited to be back with you. It has been a great past 2 days talking about values, values-based leadership, leadership presence, professional bearing, confidence, all of those great things that we talked about. I hope you are doing the homework that's sent out just to help you basically reflect back on what we talked about on day 1 and on day 2. And if you haven't done it yet, I do absolutely recommend you do the best self exercise where you're going out to 5 to 10 folks. They can be family, friends, colleagues, former colleagues, whatever the case might be, and ask them to send you 3 to 5 stories, about a paragraph in length each, of a time when they saw you at your best. They will tell you things you forgot about that you never realized meant something to them, and that will help you define your own personal values and what they really are, because it's really a video reflection that's inside those individuals' minds and their memories of you in action. It's what it's all about, the best self exercise. So if you haven't done it, by all means, do it and see what comes of it. It'll be a fantastic experience. So just a quick reminder, if this is your first day joining us, there is going to be a link where it shows tells you about the webinar, or about this live session, but there's a link for StreamYard. If you want to come into the comments so that we can see who's with us, by all means, click the link and then we'll see it. We stream to 2 different locations, our Facebook group and the YouTube channel. If you are viewing on YouTube and you're not part of the Facebook group, we would love to have you involved and engaged there as well. It's where we keep guides. We have some how-to documents in there as how we continue to grow that group and to engage individuals, to help everybody build their leadership and business acumen, and to ultimately earn your seat at the executive table. Build trust, build confidence in the C or from the C-suite, so that you are a trusted leader, mentor, coach inside your organization, helping solve for today's most challenging business and people related issues. So with that, one thing I would like to do today here real quick, so that you know who we are. It's not just me. You see my face, but we have others that are part of our program and a part of our training and development that we do. I'm going to take a moment and I am going to show you and introduce you to them real quick. Let me add this to the stream. There we go. Okay, we're back. Tracy, can you hear me? Since you're in there, I stopped screen sharing. Maybe that was a problem. Everything on my end shows that the audio or the microphone is working. So I'm not sure technically that could be a problem. Now Ellen says she can hear me. Okay, great. We're back. Welcome everybody. Let me just start that over really super fast. So I won't do the screen share. Let me flip something here up here, some notes that are going on. Welcome to day 3 of the HR Leadership Accelerator, and happy to see everybody back for this particular day. We're going to talk about Intellect. Admin notes, use the comments section. Maybe it was just when I started screen sharing that you couldn't heard. So let's just continue. Excuse me. Hey, when things happen, especially when you're live, you got to roll with it. And in reality, it's a good indication. That's kind of what happens in the workplace. Sometimes you get things hit you. You go into the office and you weren't expecting it, and something comes in, and it's something you have to deal with, and you have to take care of it right away. Those things happen all the time, and this is actually a good lead-in to what I'm going to show you next when we talk about your mental agility. And trust me, this was not planned. You not being able to hear me was not a planned event, but I'm going to use it as an example of having the flexibility and the mental agility to adjust and adapt and overcome whatever the situation that you're in, and why that is such an important leadership trait and leadership quality for you to build and work on. So with that, let's do this. And I'm going to show you, this is a session, a real quick clip with Dr. Barger, who I was showing earlier, who will take us through his thoughts on critical thinking, and then we'll proceed from there. Is really to talk about our intellect overall. And let's start with mental agility. On day 1, we talked about the importance of physical fitness, mental fitness, health and wellness from a leadership perspective as an individual. Now, if we talk about mental agility, and you have it here for those that have the workbook in front of you, the first bullet, just as stretching makes the body flexible, mental agility requires flexibility. It leads to our ability to think critically. We have to be flexible. Mike, in all of your experience, what has it meant to you to really have some mental agility and that ability to be flexible? What has that meant to you in your leadership of other people inside the companies that you've been part of? Or even, I can just imagine how this plays out with your mental agility and flexibility in dealing with college students.
Yeah, I think that what comes to mind when we talk about mental agility is this the notion that we talk about in the military of no plan withstands contact with the enemy, or if you're more a follower of globally recognized Mike Tyson, the philosopher, who said everyone's got a plan till they get punched in the mouth. I think that folks are coming to grips with the reality that no matter how much time they put into planning for anything, that within 5 or 10 seconds of them hitting the go button, the plan's not going to go according to what they expected anymore. They're going to run into something that they hadn't talked about or planned for or prepared people for. And so I think having a mindset of, we are going to have to be flexible as we execute anything, because we're going to run into things that maybe some of which we should have predicted, maybe we wouldn't have been able to, but here we are. I think if folks recognize that they're going to have to deal with those kinds of unforeseen challenges, it makes it a lot easier for us to focus on, what are the most important things to keep in mind. Things like, well, what ultimately are we trying to accomplish? What does success look like? What's the not what's the exact path to get us from here to there, but what are the things that we're trying to accomplish, and how can we prepare ourselves to have to, shuck and jive, if you will, along the way.
Yeah, no, that's perfect. And I think, for everybody listening, because, the HR community can relate to things like that happening on any given day, right? You don't go into work or into the office and start your day thinking, or planning for some employee relations issue like to happen. They happen, it's going to happen. So the more flexible you are mentally, the more agile you are in that capacity, the better you might present yourself in responding to such a thing.
Yeah.
And if everybody listening, if you put in the comments block, because I think this is another good example, because we go through this every single year in human resources, and it's open enrollment for benefits. It's one of my favorite times of year, right? And you do all this planning leading up to open enrollment. And if you're on a calendar year, that might be October, November timeframe, because the new plan year starts January 1st. So you may have been negotiating contracts with your carriers, working with your broker in the beginning of the year, and you're planning for this great event for everybody. And then you kick off open enrollment, and everybody's supposed to be driven to this system to make their elections. And you've done these, maybe you've done webinars and explained everything to them. And then you see like, hey, nobody's doing their stuff. Like nobody's taking care of their open enrollment. And you know that you're in this crunch time of a couple of weeks to get this done, right? And then you're going to end up in a time crunch where they can't make changes anymore, and now you're into qualified events type of stuff, without the mental agility to be flexible because it's coming, and maybe adjust course in how you're executing, how you're communicating to people, and how you're engaging. As we've talked previously in the past couple of days, your fellow supervisors in your company to help them get their employees to come do their open enrollment, right? It's going to go not haywire, but it's not going to go exactly to plan. And I think that's the point, right? It just won't, no matter how well you plan.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think people, today, because they want other folks to be really happy with the plan and whatever you've set up, right? So if you've got your open enrollment all set up, you want folks to go to the website on time. You want them to get there and have the site work exactly like you planned. You want all of the instructions to be just, ridiculously intuitive, and everyone be thrilled with their options and all of those things. We tend to get really focused on the step-by-step process rather than, okay, at the end of the day, the objective here is we need everybody enrolled so that they can be safe and secure and have the coverage they need. That's the end game. Right. If we start with the kind of the end game, the success criteria in mind, and work our way backwards, then when the very first day of open enrollment goes sideways for whatever reason, okay, well, all right, so we only have 89 days left now instead of 90, right? So we got lots of time to recover. So right?
I think that's a great point. It's keeping in mind, which takes us to the next bullet comment for everybody that has the workbook. And if you're listening and you tuned in, because this is live inside of our Facebook group, if you didn't register and get the workbook, you can message me. Send us a DM or whatever, and we'll get you the workbook. So you can go back when you're watching the recordings from Monday, Tuesday, and so forth. You'll have the workbook in front of you. But bullet 2 is critical thinking, right? So I think you did a little bit of that just now in the thinking of the objective. Like, what is the actual objective that you want to achieve? And we'll just stick with the open enrollment example. It could be any project, right? It's what is it that we're looking to achieve? How do we think about that? You hear the term a lot. Critical thinking. What does that mean to you?
Critical thinking to me means that you have a deliberate, thoughtful process of kind of interpreting the information that you have available to you, and then taking the kind of appropriate steps given the information that you have to reach a decision that gives you the outcome that you're looking for. I think critical thinking is challenging for folks because, Bo, you and I have talked about this, the nickel dime game before. And if we have time today, I'll share.
We'll get into it. We're going to.
Because I think it's a great example. But I think we spend so much time these days thinking about outcomes and how important it is that we're always spot on with our outcomes, that we lose sight of the fact that there is a lot more that goes into a successful outcome than just making the right decision. I mean, sometimes we make exactly the right decision and the outcome doesn't turn out well for us because of timing, or because the world spun differently, or because we didn't execute it very well, or because it's not a priority anymore, or maybe just it was bad luck, right? We did everything right and we didn't get there. So to me, critical thinking is as much about the thought process that goes into reaching a decision as it does in the outcomes we produce. And don't confuse that for me suggesting that outcomes aren't important. Yes, I'm an academic now, and I like to focus probably more on process than outcomes, because I'm convinced that if our process is better, we'll generate better outcomes over time.
Right.
In the business world, everything seems to be about this time. And so we want outcomes this time. So there is a lot of pressure to get those things right. But as a leader, I would ask all of you to think a little bit about not just how do we get better outcomes all the time, but how do I help myself and my people develop a more effective kind of thought process? How can we work together to collaborate to just get to decisions better, so that over time the outcomes of those decisions are better?
Okay, that was Dr. Mike Barger, and we're talking about critical thinking. This is a segue into what we talk about when we say critical thinking and thinking multiple layers deep. So when we define our 5 cornerstones inside the Bravo Center of Excellence, and in what we teach from leadership development perspective, and being able to get to the point where you're making decisions based upon information that you have at hand, and how you're going about this and how you are training others, we take it across the 5 cornerstones of people, strategy, finance, systems, and then ultimately execution. So even if we stay with the example of open enrollment, you are approaching that, and that's a bigger project. But this can happen even in your daily types of things that come up. And the more you do it, the more your mind will go quicker, and the thinking process will go faster, and you'll literally slide right across these 5 cornerstones for anything that you're dealing with. So if you think about open enrollment, and you think about the first cornerstone of people, you know that open enrollment is literally everybody who's eligible inside your company should have some type of thing they have to do. They're going to perform an action, and that action might simply be to go in the system and say, yep, I want everything to continue, if you don't have that on autopilot. Or it could be literally needing to attend a webinar with you or your benefits advisor and learn about all of their options, have those discussions with their family members because it impacts them too. So there's a lot of people involved and impacted in open enrollment. So when you're starting this process, open enrollment is a period of time toward the end of your plan year, but you've started the process much sooner to manage this project. And you're thinking about people. And then when you think about strategy, and we'll use Michael Porter as like the father of strategy and Porter's 5 forces, but he defined strategy many ways, but there's one thing in particular that he said, if you're going to define it with one sentence, what is strategy? Strategy is the antidote to competition. Strategy is the antidote to competition. So how do you use that in your decision making when you're talking about something like open enrollment? Benefits. Why do you have benefits? Benefits help you recruit top talent. They help you retain the talent that you have in your people. So you got to make sure that the benefits you're bringing forward are benefits aligned with those things: recruiting top talent, retaining people. But then it also has to be in line with what? With money, finance. There's a business side, business decision component to it. So it's having those conversations with the CFO, with your CEO about what type of budget do we have, what type of contributions is the company going to have toward, medical insurance premiums, dental premiums. How about contributions towards health savings accounts or flexible spending accounts? What is the employer piece going to be for the next plan year? That's the finance. That's the money piece behind open enrollment, this project that you have. Systems, that's cornerstone number 4. What system are you going to put in place in order to actually execute this project over a period of time, which could be 9 to 12 months from when you begin it to when it ends? And you've got everybody enrolled and you had a successful event. So systems, when you think about it, systems is a collective of different things, and you're building a framework. So your systems include processes, procedures, checklists, different types of things that you put in place in order to guide the entire process. It's your project management plan. It is your Gantt chart. It's all the things that you can put in place to develop an open enrollment system. and it includes whatever the enrollment system is inside. Maybe it's inside of your HRIS system, making sure that payroll deductions are all updated inside that, particularly the automation, the software system. So systems is the other cornerstone. It's the fourth cornerstone, that when you're thinking about the whole project and your decision-making process, you're thinking about all of these things. So you've thought about the people, the strategy, the money behind it. What's the contribution going to be? The system that you have in place in order to actually execute the project. And you may have other team members involved in it. And what have you laid out for them? And then the fifth one is execution. How is it getting executed? Number one, who's executing it? Who's in charge of executing against this system to bring open enrollment to reality, and so forth. So the execution has got to be in that thought process when you at the beginning, and when you're planning for this, you're thinking across multiple layers. It's the critical thinking that goes into open enrollment. We're just using that as an example, and it's every function that you do inside of human resources, but it's getting your mind trained to go across multiple layers and think in multiple layers deep, so that you don't end up with, or you prevent yourself from dealing with unintended consequences because you didn't think through certain aspects of the project. And you can literally put this kind of framework and model across everything that you do. So people first, strategy, finance, systems, execution, and just kind of get your mind trained around all of that. And that will literally lead you to our next topic, which is situational awareness and assessment and your overall decision making. When you get in the habit, or you build this habit of thinking across multiple layers, and you have this framework, it gives you a holistic picture, situational awareness, full situational awareness around what you're doing, what your team's doing, what your company is doing. And with that, it helps you make decisions moving forward. So what I want to play for you next is the nickel dime exercise that Mike just talked about. If you've never heard it before, I think it'll be very intriguing for you. And it's a very eye-opening scenario, quick exercise. It's only a few minutes. And you can see the impact and of decision-making and how you get to decision-making. And there's a difference between making the right decision versus what you thought the outcomes should be. All right, so let's bring this back in and show you the nickel dime exercise.
I'm going to have everyone use their imagination a little bit. So here is a little mental exercise that I use to help people kind of appreciate the fact that we can't always evaluate the kind of effectiveness of people's decision making based solely on outcomes. And so here's the nickel dime game. So imagine that I'm going to give you a choice. I'm going to show you a nickel, regular nickel, heads on one side, tails on the other. It's not a trick coin or anything, regular nickel. And then I'm going to show you a dime, heads on one side, tails on the other. And I'm going to ask you to make a choice about which one you would flip for the potential to earn some money. So if you choose the nickel, okay, I'm going to flip the nickel. And if it comes up heads, I'll give you $5 million. And if it comes up tails, you win nothing. All right. So heads, you win 5 million, tails, you lose. Or that's option one. Or you can choose to flip the dime. And if you choose to flip the dime and I flip it and it comes up heads, I'll give you $10 million. And if it comes up tails, I'll give you nothing. So you can choose the nickel, 5 million or nothing, or choose the dime, 10 million or nothing. Which would you choose? Okay. And while all of you out there scratch your heads a little bit and think this must be a trick question, because there is clearly only one answer to choose. So if you wanted to flip the nickel, you should write something in the chat now asking for help, because that's not the right choice. Okay. You would clearly here choose to flip the dime. All right. So now let's go ahead and flip them just to see how they go. So you chose the dime because that was the right choice. And I flip the dime and it comes up tails. Sorry, you lose. You get nothing. Now I flip the nickel just for fun so that we can flip it. And I flip the nickel and sure enough, it comes up heads. So had you chosen the nickel, you would be $5 million ahead. Mm-hmm. So the question is, did you make the right choice? And what's really interesting about the game is that for most people, there is this very brief flash of a second there where you think, is there some way that I should have been able to figure out to flip the nickel? And the truth is that given the information you had at the time, 100% of the time you should choose to flip the dime. Okay, so your decision-making process in this case, if you chose the dime, was spot on. You did everything right. Okay, the outcome, however, didn't work out for you.
Right.
So when I tell that story, when I'm teaching people about critical thinking, that story is cute and maybe it provides a nice kind of visual for the point here. My point, though, that I make with that game is, isn't it interesting that most of us as leaders, because we are so busy, that we don't have time to give our people much feedback other than at the end of a quarter or the semi-annual review or the annual review. And all we have to look at is what they created, what they produced, what their outcomes were. Okay. And I'm not saying outcomes aren't important. They are. But you are going to have people that make really bad decisions and generate some outcomes that on the surface look okay. And you're going to have some people to make really good decisions consistently that things just don't seem to be working out for them. And so for my ask of leaders when we talk about kind of coaching and mentoring and taking care of your people is you have to be able to spend some time with your folks on their processes, not just their outcomes. Because I've talked with lots of companies that hear the nickel dime game story and their first thought is, yeah, the person that got the $5 million for choosing the nickel would probably get a bonus or a promotion or a something because they generated the outcome that was better for the company.
Right.
Even though I would say you need to either coach or really mentor or release that person because that was a really bad decision.
So if you've ever experienced in your organization or any organization that you've worked in where an individual or a team seemed to stumble upon luck and had a really great outcome, and then they're rewarded for that outcome, and it really had not much to do with the decision-making process that went into making certain decisions leading to an outcome, put that in the raise your hand or put that in the comments box. I would love to hear it because I think Mike is spot on. Oftentimes we reward outcomes only, and then over time we kind of look back and we think, why are we not doing great all the time? Like we have instances of super high, what somebody might define as super high performance or this super great outcome by an individual or a team, but it's not repeated and it's not continual. And it's not something that you witness over a longer time frame, which goes into the importance of what we're talking about and having a framework, a decision-making framework, and following a process. And when you follow a process, you literally have something that you can review and see if that process breaks down, if it needs to be tweaked, if it needs to be adjusted. And over time, in the long term, ultimately, outcomes will be better than the hit or miss, dumb luck, if you will, that happens sometimes. And then we want to reward, we want to bonus, we want to give people credit where there wasn't a whole lot of critical thinking or right decision making to go with it. But it doesn't get measured, and then it just continues and it spirals. It can just end up spiraling downhill, which leads to the next topic for today, which is really, it's around expertise. And inside the workbook, I listed it as expertise versus expert. So expertise versus expert, and are they the same? And I would tell you, and I put them in there in this fashion specifically for the purpose of if you are a continuous learner, which I highly recommend. You're reading, you're doing professional development, you're attending sessions like this, you're attending webinars, you're going back to school, you're learning on the job. If you're a continuous learner and always striving to do better each and every day, to learn more and more and more, then what you're doing is you're building your expertise, your skill sets, your soft skills, your hard skills. You're building expertise along that journey And I would say that is what I would always recommend in this process of building your leadership ability, building your business acumen, is that you're on a journey and you're becoming someone that builds expertise over time. And an expert kind of gives you the indication that you've stopped, that you've hit a point, and that you're at a certain level, and that you're an expert in X, Y, or Z. But if you want to be an expert in A and B, then you have to go do more learning and increase and so forth. So think about expertise in a way of a continual journey to continuous learning, development, and so forth. And then how do you inside your organization, inside your HR department, or even with other department heads and leaders in your organization, how do you build and help build as a leader? How do you help build their expertise? How do you develop and build your team and increase your team's expertise overall? I have a model. It's called train, test, execute, right? And it's a repeatable process. Professional Performance Magazine, which is actually founded by one of our other team members. And I'm going to try to introduce you to the rest of the team here in just a minute, see if it works and you hear the audio. But I wrote an article for Professional Performance Magazine. Their latest edition is called Teamwork POTUS Style. And it's where I lay out this train, test, execute methodology in your team, and when you're training people and you're trying to build their expertise. So if you have a benefits manager and they need to improve, then it's a bit of training. Then you test them on what you trained them on, and then you let them execute, and you're watching them execute. You're basically monitoring their performance, and then you sit them down and you do an after action review with them, and you see where they went right, where they went wrong, where they can improve and do better, and where they can improve and do better. Those are your next training items that you train them on, and then you test them again and let them execute, and it just becomes a continual cycle. And you do that with your entire team. So even if you were helping a fellow department head increase their leadership abilities, their business acumen, you can take them down the same journey. So you can mentor and coach your fellow leaders inside the organization. And you can use this method of train, test, execute. And you got to make sure that you're taking the time to do that. Everybody likes to receive training, but make sure that you're not just training, that you also test them. Test them could be a 30-minute session where you're literally just talking to them about what they learned to make sure they understand it before you set them free to actually perform it. So that leads into the last section, which is innovation, challenging yourself, challenging others, empowerment plus inclusivity. And then I have a new process exercise that I'm going to tell you about that you can use inside your own team. You can use it if you're a team of one. You can use it for yourself. But when you think about innovation, don't just think about like companies bringing new products to market, or they have a patent or a new patent, a new copyright, new trademarks, right? Innovation can come in many forms, and you have to challenge yourself to think about innovation in a way of improving or making something new out of what you're already doing, and making sure that it's serving the needs of the day. But tomorrow there could be a different need. Next year it could be even different. There could be, you think about people today or companies today having to get creative in certain ways in order to attract talent to their companies because they're making more money on state unemployment and then the federal addition, and they don't want to come back to work. So the businesses that are open and they need employees back, they have to be creative. The ones that are being successful, they're getting creative and they're coming up with innovative ways to attract employees back, to get their applications in, to get their positions filled so that they can execute at full capacity again. One of the ways to really bring innovation to the highest levels possible is to include your entire team. I had a discussion with some local business leaders, and what we found here in our area, when you think about the pandemic and some restaurants closed down, some figured it out. And what we saw was a common theme. The ones that figured it out and the ones that even prospered during the pandemic, making more money than they were making prior to COVID, were the leaders that brought their teams together and said, hey, we're all in this together. This is what's happening. So we need to figure this out together. Who has any ideas? Does anybody have an idea on what we could possibly do? How can we make this business succeed, not just survive, but thrive? So having these conversations with your team, and really that's a form of empowerment, bringing ideas to the forefront from everybody, giving everybody an opportunity to speak, and being inclusive in those ideas and throwing them up on the wall and seeing what sticks. Really, those types of things that you do, those types of exercises, if you're leading that as an HR team, just like the HR leader did for JetBlue when they developed their values at the very beginning, in the first year of opening their company, she did the same thing. She brought this exercise forward, and it was an empowerment and inclusivity type of event where it's like everything has to come in, and we have to figure out what it is that's going to stick and what we're all about. Which is this new process exercise. So you go through with an innovation or new process exercise, you go through the steps of informing everybody that you need a new process. Let's say this process is you need performance management. You need to overhaul your performance management process because today it's an annual review. No one likes to do it. No, you don't have much buy-in to it. And it just becomes one of those compliant requirements that the company does every single year. And by the time you get to that year, just as Dr. Barger stated in the video clip, you're just thinking about outcomes of that employee over the past year. And then you use that as the determining factor of, are they going to get a bonus? Where do they rate amongst their fellow employees? What kind of pay raise are they going to get? It's all focused around that. And it doesn't work. You want something new as the HR leader. So how are you actually going to do that? How are you going to lead this effort inside your organization to be innovative and creative to get a better review process underway? So you start with an exercise, and you literally bring all of your stakeholders into a meeting, an innovation session. Title it innovation session, not just a meeting, so they know you're going to be creative and you're trying to get to something new to better the company, better the organization, right? And you give them homework. Right? Come with ideas, come with 100 ideas on, let's say 50-50. Come with 50 things that you think we need to measure or we need to talk about that are qualitative. Qualitative would be those things like, how do people make decisions, and so forth. Things that aren't measured by numbers, right? How do they interact with people? How do they interact with their team? Are they toxic? Are they not toxic? Are they encouraging? Are they empathetic? Are they respectful? And so forth. Those are the qualitative things that you can put around performance management, and then have them define 50 things that are quantitative, things that they can measure inside of their department for their roles, right? And then when you get everybody together, you literally just throw everybody's ideas up on a wall, right? So once everybody's ideas are on the wall, you can start to collate them around and see what people are thinking. And then you can talk about them, you can discuss them, and then you move on to, okay, now you have your most important items that you pulled out of qualitative and quantitative. And I'm briefly saying this exercise so that we don't run out of time for the session today. But you've pulled out, you've talked about them, you've decided these are our qualitative and quantitative measures, and then you're going to talk about process. You're going to talk about put up all the ideas around process and how does this flow. So what are we doing there? We're building a system around performance management, and we're thinking about people, strategy, money, systems, and then it's going to get executed at the end. So we're using innovation to define a new performance management process, and how we're going to do it. But in reality, we've got it surrounded by these 5 cornerstones of people, strategy, finance, systems, and execution. And in the end, you're going to come up with a brand new performance management system for your company that has what? That has 100% buy-in from the stakeholders, because you involved all of them in getting it done. And then the performance management will actually mean something. People will be evaluated for their decision-making abilities, for their ability and their willingness to bring ideas to the table, for leaders empowering others and including others and promoting others and and all of those types of things that you would love to see inside of any organization. So under this umbrella, day 3 umbrella of Intellect, scrolling across the bottom of the screen, you have mental agility, sound judgment, expertise, and innovation, all leading to an individual's intellect. And when you promote that, and you've started literally where we started on day 1 with personal values, corporate values, getting into your leadership presence, your professional bearing, confidence, add intellect, and you're really starting to develop and see the picture of where you can be, where you can achieve increased leadership abilities in yourself. And that's what it's all about. It's giving you all of the tools, the tactics, the knowledge on how to be a better leader. But you got to build that within yourself, and then you can deliver that to others. So with that, I want to try real quick. I'm not going to take me off. So maybe that was the problem last time. I'm going to share screen, but I'm going to keep me on. Okay. Now, real quick, Ellen, Tracy, Kara, anybody in the comments section, just give me a thumbs up if you can hear me. All right. So somebody will tell me they can't hear me. Hopefully, if you can't. So we talked about the team. So I want to introduce you to the team. I think it's super important that you get to know us when we're building this relationship back and forth, and we are delivering the live sessions like this. We're delivering our 30-minute lives that we're now doing for continuing education. And our team members come in and participate in those live sessions, but they also participate in our leadership development programs, our 3 and 12-month development programs in a big way. And we also have a series, now that you see Mike Barger, Dr. Barger up on the screen, I can tell you about it. Ellen put the link in up above in the comments section. We have a very special 3-part webinar series coming up on June 23rd, 24th, 25th. Every single day is a credit hour. It's a different conversation. All of it ties together, and it literally ties into everything that we're talking about. It's enterprise values, aligning strategy, and then building winning cultures and leading those efforts. And Dr. Barger is going to talk about that each day and present it. So it's 3 hours of continuing education for HR recertification. It's going to be a great event. I'm super excited that he's bringing this to the forefront. And then those will be courses on our e-learning platform afterwards. So that's Dr. Barger. Dr. Barger is the co-founder of JetBlue Airways. I think you probably got that from the last couple of days. Former Navy Top Gun pilot, chief instructor, and now he's with the University of Michigan Ross School of Business, which is where I met him. Our next teammate is Dr. Gail Boyd Rogers. Dr. Rogers holds a doctorate in business administration. She is the epitome of an HR business partner. So inside of the organization she currently works in, it's literally all about aligning business strategy and the business acumen to the HR profession and helping others through that very thing. We are very honored to have Dr. Rogers as part of our team, and I look forward to presenting her to you in the future through webinars, through these sessions, and so forth. And we have Chris Clues. Chris Clues is a chief marketing officer. He's an author. He's a keynote speaker. We have a course on our e-learning platform with Chris about reimagining the relationship between human resources and marketing. And the reason that's important, because in HR, one of the things that we talk about is building the relationships with the right players in your organization in the C-suite. The marketing team, the chief marketing officer, is one of those individuals. And everything that the company's doing from a marketing perspective, we should be doing from an HR perspective. We should use their resources. We should use what they bring to the table when we're recruiting and we're trying to find top talent. And Chris has a great course out there on that, and we're honored to have him on the team as well. And Amy Lynn Durham, you saw her in a quick video clip on Monday. Amy's a Berkeley certified executive coach, expert. She has expertise in EQ, SQ. We do our SQ assessment with Amy as part of our 12-month leadership development program. That's where we start people. We start with the SQ assessment, and you do a one-on-one coaching session with Amy, and that leads us into the program. So you really have this foundation on where you start when you're inside the program. And then we have Dr. Jeff McGee. This individual is amazing. Dr. McGee, there's a course out there. It's a free course on the Bravo Center of Excellence.teachable.com where we talk about human capital management with Dr. McGee. He's also, as I showed earlier, Dr. McGee is the founder of Professional Performance Magazine. It's been in existence for 30 years. It's a quarterly publication. He's interviewed and he's wrote about multiple presidents, business leaders, you name it. Dr. McGee his expertise is exponential and through the roof when we're talking about human capital management and leadership development. We're super excited to have him on the team. Eric Freeman, he is our benefits advisor extraordinaire. I've worked with Eric multiple times in different companies, and there's a course on the platform with him as well about benefits and how to approach it and the strategy around it. And one of the reasons why I used open enrollment as an example, it's one of the ways you can have a huge impact inside your organization, not just for the people, but across all 5 cornerstones, people, strategy, finance, systems, execution. Eric is the man when it comes to benefit strategy, and we are so thankful to have him on the team. And we have Kate Colbert. She's also a marketing expert. She's worked with hundreds of companies and human resources departments when it comes to marketing innovation inside of your organization. Kate is working on different courses that she's putting together for us. She'll also be participating in our webinars and so forth. She's a book publisher. She has her own publishing company. Myself and Dr. Barger are both published through Kate's company, and having her on our team is a benefit to everyone. And on this Friday, I'll show you a video clip with Marcus when we talk about performance and getting results. Marcus is a former NFL player, 6 years in the NFL. He started his own construction company, built it to 8 figures, 7 or 8 figures, I believe. And before the company ended, today he's a best-selling author and keynote speaker. He's a business consultant. And what Marcus brings to the table from a performance perspective is really the leadership and the team leadership and building the high-performing teams. And it's our pleasure that we present him to you and that he is part of our program. He's an advisor, presenter, and instructor because building the teams is just as important for us in HR, and we are out to deliver that to you. Building leadership and business acumen in HR, as I said it in the beginning, it's the whole reason that we exist and we started this academy. So everybody that comes into this, they're out in the field, they're practitioners, and they know what it takes to build leadership, build business acumen, and we're presenting that to you. And we have Dana Shudo. Dana's from Ottawa, Canada. Dana has a very unique background. She is a thought leader in DEI. I'm amazed every time I talk with Dana, her depth of this particular subject and how profound it can be for HR to deliver DEI initiatives when you really learn what it's all about and how to deliver it and the types of programs that you can put in place. And Dana will be talking to us in the future webinars and so forth coming up in different training events where Dana will come in and talk about DEI. So with that, those are the leaders and instructors, presenters, advisors. Vince Calo, he is our general counsel for our company. Hale Media Group is our parent, is the company that I own, through which we deliver the Bravo Center of Excellence and so forth. And Vince is our general counsel. He's part of the company. He's an important part of the company, key player in our company, keeps us all on track from all of our legal perspective. And he is a great leader. Vince has his MBA from the University of Michigan. It's where I met him. And we partnered up on these ventures that we're in. And he's also an NFL agent. And he does an amazing job for his clients and his football players that are part of his repertoire, his clientele. Truly an amazing individual, a very entrepreneur business mindset. We use Vince for all of that, and his contributions are insurmountable for us. And then we have Elle, who you met or you've been communicating with in the comments section. Ellen is my oldest daughter, and she's a former U.S. Army captain. She is a communications extraordinaire, strategic communications, public relations individual, social media guru, you name it. And we are super blessed to have her on the team and part of our business in order to deliver the right content to you and make sure it's communicated well. That is the whole point. If we don't communicate well, then it's kind of pointless. So that is the team. Thank you for bearing with me. I'm super excited to share them with you. And over time, if you go back even on the YouTube channel that we set up, over time, you will meet everybody in a live format like this. So I will leave you with that. Today's the end of day 3. Tomorrow, we're going to get into some, hold on a second, let me grab the form. Tomorrow, day 4, we're going to talk about trust and confidence, leading by example. Really important is leading outside of your organization, because in HR, I'm sure you get solicited on a regular basis, vendors calling you. Some of them you have to engage with and you need as part of your team, but how to transition from vendor to partner and then lead that partnership. And then we're going to talk about the importance of communication. So that's tomorrow. The overall title for tomorrow is leading. And that'll take us into Friday, where we're going to get into getting results. We'll talk more tomorrow afternoon about the leadership programs and how you can be involved in that. We look forward to that. If you have any questions, comments, whatever, make sure you bring them to the comments, put them in the feedback. You can always message me, bo@robertbrabo.com. Happy to set up a time to talk with anybody, talk through any of this stuff in more detail. You're getting a highlight, you're getting an overview of what this is really all about. I'll share more about that tomorrow. So thank you, everyone. I appreciate your time, and we will see you tomorrow at 12 p.m. Eastern.